Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit TRE.radio.
Discuss, challenge, inform, comment, viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe.
Giles Brown.
Live comment and discussion with studio guests. Viewpoint.
It is Tuesday, the 4th of March, and you're listening to Viewpoint, Talk Radio Europe's current affairs show with a panel of invited guests with you for the next 2 hours. Well, I don't know what we're going to talk about today. Not much been happening news-wise. On today, it is Shrove Tuesday, Pancake Tuesday, so we might talk about the perfect pancake a bit later on. But somehow, I doubt it. On today's show, going to be discussing the latest developments and an ongoing. Since we last met last Tuesday, we had the visit of Sir Keir Starmer to Washington, which went very cordially. That was on Thursday. And then on Friday, Zelensky went to the White House and disregarded the Oval Office, apparently. And the fallout for that has been quite something. We had a meeting of European leaders on the Saturday. Zelensky met King Charles III. And as I got up this morning and I turned on my news feed, I was greeted by the news that the US has put a halt on aid to Ukraine and the introduction of tariffs against Mexico, against China, and against Canada. What could possibly go wrong, as the saying goes? I am joined in the studio by our regularly invited guest, Andres Gallardo. Good morning to you, Andres.
Good morning, Giles.
And live and direct, formerly known as the nicest man in radio, but after the next 2 hours, who knows? Good morning to you, Ron Yates.
Good morning, Giles.
And I got the wrong microphone. Let's just try that again. Try that again, Ron.
Good morning, Giles.
That's better. And for those who don't know, can you explain whereabouts you're from?
I'm from about 100 miles north of Toronto on the southern tip of Georgian Bay, which runs off Lake Huron, one of the 5 Great Lakes in Canada.
In Canada. So we have an actual live Canadian in the studio, and I'm sure that we shall be...
An affected party, actually.
An affected party. We have to be an affected party to be on this show, to put it mildly. If you want to talk on Viewpoint today, these are the numbers, or anything else that's crossing your radar. Here's how to get in contact.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
But first, let's look at this morning's papers. The news that the United States is to pause military aid for Ukraine broke too late on the first editions of this morning's papers, but there's been plenty of reaction on their website. Trump squeezes Zelensky is the Daily Mail's headline. It says the US president has stunned NATO allies with his decision after losing his patience with the Ukrainian leader. The Daily Telegraph calls the move a crippling blow to Ukraine's war effort. In its analysis, the Times declares that freezing military aid could be a risky move by Trump, but he's not prepared to lose face and wants Zelensky to apologize for the blowout in the Oval Office on Friday. Looking at some of the American news websites, Politico says the suspension is designed to be a show of force with the aim of putting pressure on President Zelensky to return to the negotiating table. The New York Times writes that the immediate beneficiary is Vladimir Putin. The paper goes on to say that if the suspension is lengthy, the Russian president could use the time to press for further territorial gains. Back in the UK, the papers mark the ongoing diplomatic efforts by the UK. The Daily Express says MPs from across the political spectrum have given their backing to Sir Keir Starmer and his staunch support of Ukraine after his recent flurry of meetings on the matter at home and abroad. The paper's headline quotes the Prime Minister, who said yesterday the UK had to lead from the front when it came to protecting Ukraine and standing up to Russia. The I paper paper reports that Britain is looking beyond NATO at countries such as Jordan, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia to help to enforce a ceasefire in Ukraine. Meanwhile, comments made by the Duchess of Sussex ahead of the release of her new Netflix show have also been picked up by some of the papers. The Times focuses on the Duchess, saying that developing her lifestyle program called With Love, Meghan allowed her to show her children the realities of being a working mum. The Times reports that the Duchess has insisted that she's not an influencer and has sees herself more as a female entrepreneur. Many of the papers look back at the career of Scottish painter Jack Vetriano. His death at the age of 73 was announced yesterday. Both the Sun and the Mirror used the phrase people's painter to describe him, a nod to the fact that he was often dismissed by the art world but loved by the public. The Times says while his work was divisive, there's no doubt that every one of his paintings sparked a story in the mind, and he introduced significant numbers of people to the world of art. So from the top today on the pile of papers that we have, top of my paper pile, again, these went to press before the overnight news. First one is the Daily Telegraph. Picture of Melania Trump wearing a trouser suit. Trump to Zelensky, your time's almost up. Meanwhile, The Guardian, U.S. rift with Ukraine grows as Europe seeks ceasefire. The Daily Mail, Trump, I won't put up with Zelensky for much longer. The Times, Trump lambasts Europe for showing weakness. The Eye, UK hunts new allies to keep Putin at bay. The Express, UK must lead from the front to stop Russian menace. The Mirror, United Kingdom, President says Zelensky doesn't want peace as he blasts Europe, but the Prime Minister in the UK has been backed and Trump is in fury. The FT leads with Europeans move towards seizing 200 billion euros of frozen Russian assets. The Metro, this is a different story. A TikTok child sex probe. Nude shows claim as data crackdown begins. Very worrying. And finally, the Daily Star with something completely different. It warns of rise of the robo lackeys. Money for nought while they do all the work, saying that people will soon have to be paid for doing nothing. And those are your headlines on this Tuesday, the 4th of March.
Viewpoint with Giles Brown.
And just to let you know that this show is sponsored by St. James Global Private Clients. They're pleased to announce their expansion into Spain. Specialists in protecting and preserving global wealth with over 40 years experience helping clients enjoy their retirement lifestyle. For expert financial advice for Spanish tax residents and to maximize your retirement income, contact St. James Global Private Clients at info@stjamesglobal.com. That's stjamesglobal.com. St. James Global, protecting your assets and growing your wealth. We have the poll of polls on our Facebook page. If you go to Talk Radio Europe official, you will see it. I'm asking the question, after Friday's fracas between Trump and Zelensky at the White House, do you think the Ukraine leader disrespected the Oval Office? At the moment, 90% say he didn't disrespect and 10% say he did. Panel, what are your thoughts on the since we last met, or since for the past 7 days? I'll start with you, Andres.
Well, what we saw in the White House last week, it was shameful. I mean, that was a total disrespect for Zelensky the minute he arrived, when Trump questioned his what do you call it? Well, that's a beautiful word that has gone out of my mind. But anyway, when you question how he was dressed, to start, I mean, you don't have a guest come in and they say, "Oh, I don't like what you're wearing." What the hell is that? I mean, that was ridiculous. Especially knowing that Zelensky wears the military clothing because as a sign of respect for his countrymen who are fighting in the front line. So I mean, everybody knows that. But to question that was setting up the scene for a bullying match, which is what happened later. I saw the whole the whole thing at the White House. It's about 46 minutes. For me to take 46 minutes of my time to go and watch that is saying a lot. But it was obviously orchestrated. They wanted to get to the point where he was cornered. He wasn't allowed at the beginning when everything was going well. There was 2 or 3 times when he wasn't allowed to respond, and Trump would direct the questions to different journalists present without giving time to Zelensky to speak. So it's almost like Zelensky is a nuisance, and it's obvious that what they want to do is just get rid of the guy so they can do a deal. The ultimate deal that we don't know about it, but I'm 100% convinced that is what's on the table, is that Putin gets his territory in the east of Ukraine, America, and they just split. America gets their business interest in Ukraine, and they split the country between the two superpowers, one controlling the east, the United States controlling the financial situation there, and Ukraine as a sovereign country almost disappears. That means that Putin has got away with invading a neighboring country, a sovereign country that has been for 30 years. Basically, he did it with Crimea, now he's doing it in the east. Even Trump saying that he's not going to take it further. Trump is only going to be there for 4 years. And Putin is well known for breaking his deals, doing whatever he wants. And he's just giving him almost carte blanche to go and just starting another war or starting another, sort of takeover of some more territory. That is what is not. We shouldn't accept that, but how do we go about it? That is a difficult thing. I mean, Trump has been clever in the sense that he started very well saying things like, I want peace, which nobody will say, nobody will refute that. Everyone will say, oh, what a great man, he wants peace. But when you go to the detail, you realize that he is going the wrong way about it. And he does it with everything. He did it with the administration. He said, we want to slimline the administration to be efficient, to be productive, and everything else. So everyone says, well, that's quite a good idea. I quite agree with that. The next thing he does is, puts Elon Musk in charge of a stupid campaign of sending emails to all the employees to tell me what you did last week. What the hell is that? Everybody knows, especially if you worked in a corporate company, you know that you don't write to the window cleaner to ask him what he's done. It's the CEO of a company doesn't communicate that way. There is a different points where the communication has to go through until you get to everyone.
And we've got the first caller of the day. Good morning, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Morning, Giles. It's Teresa.
Morning, Teresa.
Now, there's an image going around, and of course, in these days of Photoshop, it may not be real, but I'd like to believe it is. And it's Winston Churchill in something that looks pretty much like a Boilermaker's overalls, meeting, I'm guessing it's Eisenhower, at the White House. And he was wearing that because his country was at war. Now, if it's true, and it wasn't a problem then, why is it a problem now?
Indeed, I know that Churchill did used to wear. I think it's a naval thing actually that he wears that boiler.
Well, yeah, it looked like. It was black and white photographs. So it looked like it was khaki. It didn't look like dark blue, which I thought a navy one would be. But anyway, whatever. He's in this thing. They made a photoshopped a picture of him doing the garden at Chartwell and put it into that image. I don't know. You can't tell anymore. But like I say, I'd like to believe it's true. And he did used to wear it, didn't he? Because he was like showing sort of camaraderie with the.
Yeah, he did, and it wasn't Trump who brought up the outfits to begin with. It was one of the press there because Trump has. Well,
no. To be fair, when he arrived and got out the car, Trump went, "Oh, nice outfit you've got on." So set up the comment from the journalist.
Indeed.
who apparently is married to a Trump person, like
a Trump person,
a very rich person.
One of his supporters. Yeah, yes.
Whatever you call them.
Teresa's right here. It was Trump, the one who started at the first reception when he gets out of the car, who questioned, the word came to my head now, his sartorial appearance.
Ah, yes.
There you go. And that's where he started, and that wasn't a good sign to start with.
Ron, your take on... Thanks for your call, Teresa, as always. And there she was gone.
Well,
Ron,
actually, my comments were going to be exactly the same as hers about the clothing and the sarcasm. And Winston Churchill as well. I saw that picture, and I believe that was an actual photograph taken of Churchill meeting in the White House in his combat gear. Yeah.
But with everything that's going on at the moment, if your country is embattled, Zelensky has been the image of the Ukrainian resistance. I mean, remember that, I'm not, when he was asked, did he want a helicopter? And he said, I'm not going anywhere. So if he turned up wearing, an Armani suit or whatever, people would say, oh, you see, his country's at war, but he's wearing a $1,000 suit. So it's on a hiding to nothing. And at the end of the day, that's not the important thing, is it, Pam?
No. It's not. And also the fact that there was a journalist, a pseudo-journalist in the White House asking Zelensky to wear a suit, or when is he going to wear a suit or something. What's ridiculous. If I'd been Trump, I would have thrown the guy out and said, what a stupid... This is such an important meeting and such an important, bilateral, talks about a peace deal and everything. And there's some journalist there. He says, when are you going to wear a suit? What the hell is that? Just get out of here. That should have been the reaction, really.
And the lines are busy this morning. Morning, call, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Morning, Giles. Peter.
Morning, Peter.
Good morning. Yes. I'll get this one early because I probably won't be about later. So, like I said last week, there's perception and there's perspective. So you're not going to change anyone's perception of what they saw. But there's a massive perspective here. And sometimes people sit down and they blow. And both of them blew. And when you look at the protocol, yes, maybe it shouldn't happen. You can look at the office, but going back to the lady just said about the uniform, I said last week about him going around in military uniform, the fact that he'd not served and that sort of thing. Now, most of that cabinet of Trump's have served. And Americans are very passionate about serving. And if you've ever been to America, I don't talk about holiday, you've been to America and you know as many people as I do and family there, when someone's served, you normally finish your conversation with thank you for your service.
Yep.
It's a big thing. And there's such a thing as stolen valor. So when someone goes into that office, talking of protocol, first of all, just changing slightly, all that meeting would have taken place before, several hours before, and for quite some time. And that was supposed to be to sit down and sign. That's a photo opportunity. That's all that is. Yet Zelensky didn't uphold his end of the bargain. He was supposed to sit down and sign, get a few photographs, and he didn't. He then started arguing with the President of the United States of America on live TV. Now, the title of the United States of America is a Commander-in-Chief. He doesn't wear a uniform. He doesn't need to wear a uniform. So all these despotic African leaders that walk around with 400 medals on their chest that have never served is diabolical. Now, he's never served. He's a comedian. Yet all the people always used to say, well, Trump's never been in politics. Nor is that man. So you're shooting yourself in the foot all the time. And my perspective on that, or my perception of that, is he should have done what he was out there to do, sign, take a few photographs and go. Now, prior to that, he met with the Democrats. Now, this is not conspiracy. It was up on Twitter or whatever you want to call it, X, and they'd met with him for several hours. So they obviously wanted this to happen and engaged for this to happen. Or the reporter who had also served, who asked that question, that could have been a setup. I don't know. But stolen valor is a big thing, and you do not stand in the office of go to the White House in a military uniform, unless you are a very high-ranking military officer, and sit there and reprimand or get into an argument with the President of the United States of America,
Peter,
the Commander-in-Chief.
If I may, Peter, two things on that one. Yeah, first one is, I think it's just a sweatshirt, isn't it? I don't think it's a military uniform he's wearing. He's not like a North Korean.
He's got the trident on there and all that. And then he's a lot of their military people are wearing that.
Okay.
I mean, hopefully you're the gentleman that's give us the vivid picture over the last couple of weeks. He might be able to put a better perspective on it. But regardless of whether it was military or not, you know, I think, was it Trump that put his hand on the back of the Queen that time?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and the uproar over that, of protocol and that. But the protocol there is, I mean, and it's ironic that you got your Canadian guest on there, because the last time I was on there and he blew because I said about the Canadian truckers, called me a conspiracy theorist, and which we all know now is true. They froze their accounts, and he blew. And at the end of your show, he apologized to your listeners for blowing. Everybody does it now and again. Didn't apologize to me, and I didn't want an apology, but he blew, and it happens. We all do it. We've all done it. But in that particular circumstance, the meeting took place. They don't have a live meeting on international TV with a world stage. The meeting took place prior to that. That was a photo opportunity. And Zelensky to sit there and argue, and he could have brushed off that question quite easily. So it works both ways. And the fact that we're talking about it when we're talking about world peace, and just to end on a quick note there, the fact of the matter is, he banished him from the White House. He withdrew the funding. And for the last few days, all we've heard is apology after apology after apology to the United States of America for not being thankful. And if you remember, after the war started a few months in, Joe Biden reprimanded him for not being grateful to the United States of America for sending the money. So the man is not grateful. He's being manhandled by the wrong people, and he's made himself look a fool. And when he turns around and says, "Well, for world peace, I'll give up my position," and if we get NATO, he's not in that position to say that. He's got a less than a 4%, what do they call it, the popularity thing, less than 4%. Now, if he was to run for an election tomorrow, he wouldn't be president of the Ukraine. And just, sorry to ramble, but there's another quick point. The uniform. Churchill served a very honourable military career, and he's quite entitled to wear a uniform. Secondly, when Churchill ran for, 10 years? Something like that, during the war, and we didn't have an election, he formed a coalition. There's no coalition in Ukraine. He's banned the opposition party. As I said, he's conscripting, taking people off the streets, no conscientious objectors, no coalition. So let's get some perspective and look at it from other people's point of view. That's my perspective, my perception of that he was wrong. I think Trump was slightly wrong. I mean, maybe he could have, but that's not Trump, is it? Trump isn't like that. So,
as always, Peter, thank you for your call in. 952 78 4000. Let's go to the WhatsApp, see what's happening with them this morning. Oh, I was going to say that, but the calls are going a while this morning as well. 952 78 4000. Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Yeah, hi, it's John in Meehus.
Morning, John.
With all due respect to Peter, that is not a military uniform. It's casual clothing. And I'm quoting from the internet, and when a reporter asked him why does he wear a suit, he said, they said a lot of Americans have problems. I will wear a suit after the war will finish.
Yeah, indeed, I heard that. I heard that. I mean, were you quite surprised by the way it sort of deteriorated, basically in 3 minutes?
Sort of yes and no, because unfortunately, unlike some people who are pro-Trump, I'm unfortunately very anti-Trump, and I suspect the whole the whole thing was a setup.
Thank you for thanks for the call.
He was trapped in a corner. They deliberately put him in a corner, and what America, I believe, I could be wrong, all they're after is an excellent deal over the rare earth elements from Ukraine. And if Ukraine were invaded by Russia, that wouldn't affect that contract, other than the fact it would pass to Russia, and Russia would get 50% of the income from it. And finally, one point is that I believe the only time is Article 5 of the United Nations, where each country will come to the aid of the other, has been employed, is when America was attacked in the bombings, the Twin Towers. And that's the only time it's ever been used. And NATO, including Britain, went to their aid. Seems that.
Yeah, that's.
I'll leave it there.
Thanks for calling. That is correct indeed. 952 78 4000. To the WhatsApps we go. Starting with good morning to Mark in the freezing UK. So did Arafat. Somebody says on that one. I'm not sure. Well, okay, wearing military uniform when he went to the White House. Thank you very much for that. Britain and the US were not at war when Eisenhower was president. Okay, yeah, but I think he might have been meeting Eisenhower as the supreme commander of the Allied forces. If it's true, Churchill's outfit was good enough. If Churchill's outfit was good enough for Roosevelt, etc., and what about Musk's garb, complete with a child accessory? He brought his toddler to the White House. Paul, morning. The reporter who asked Zelensky if he owned a suit was Brian Glenn from the pro-Trump network Real America's Voice and Republican Taylor Greene's boyfriend. It was staged. He got one of the Oval Office interviewer spots after the White House blocked Reuters and the Associated Press. Russia's state media TASS was also present, but not on the invited list. That was brought to the attention of the press office, and TASS was escorted out. Hi, the reporter is Marjorie Taylor Greene's partner. Don't forget, Russia's press was inside. Poland's 1939 Reich and Russia, okay. Mix come in, spot on, Peter. Meanwhile, Vladimir Zelensky is the president of Ukraine, not a comedian. Trump is a convicted criminal. Another one, but surely it's not the first time he's worn that outfit for a photo opportunity at the White House. If Trump is commander-in-chief, maybe Zelensky is too. Another one coming in, which is Ian in the UK. Zelensky was set up by Trump and his gang. The format was not, as Peter said. It's normally a short photo op, then a private negotiations, and finally the press conference. Zelensky, whose third language is English, wearing non-uniform, is whilst his country is at war. It should be a lively show today. Meanwhile, these ones coming in. Russia conquered half of America faster than it conquered 1/5 of Ukraine. Nice one. Sadly, we're all affected parties, whether directly or indirectly. The most telling part, I'm not calling anybody an enemy of the state, thank you very much. The most telling part of that so-and-so was that everybody wants a ceasefire. So Zelensky explains what became of the last one. For this, Vance brands him disrespectful. Zelensky's crime wasn't disrespect. It was refusing to pay homage, telling the truth and answering back. It's not a problem. The reality is that no one follows more etiquette rules than the royal family. But did you notice how Charles III, didn't make any demeaning comments about Zelensky's attire? Why? Because respect isn't about clothes, it's about character. And that's something that money can't buy. If Zelensky is a comedian, Trump is the clown.
Yes, he is.
The only fools are the bullies from the US. Staggering and outrageous, and now the 4% figure has been disproved. Caught in a trap, somebody call Elvis. Okay. Meanwhile, I'd be interested to know what Peter's thoughts are on Musk holding a press conference in the Oval Office wearing a T-shirt and a MAGA hat, which he didn't remove, with a small child in tow, who was picking his nose and wiping bogies all over the desk while telling Trump to go away, not actual words. Another one's, would he expect the Pope to wear a suit? You're live this morning. I think that Zelensky handled the meeting very well. He remained calm and objective. Trump and Vance were very humiliating and insulting. To the lines we go. You will get your say panel in a bit, but obviously it's a little lively today. Morning, call. You're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Hello, Felix, sir.
Morning, Felix.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, my friend.
Oh, good. I wouldn't expect somebody like John to do other than have the knife out ready to stick it into America and into Trump. Not everybody, not every Brit is like that, but a great percentage of Brits are like that, I find. And the Irish have kind of copied, as they always do, the British in that regard. This comes from decades and decades and decades of Cold War propaganda. So, about the situation in the White House.
Yeah,
I listened to the whole thing, and Zelensky was bad-mouthing Putin the whole time, 3 or 4 different occasions. The first time he pulled out some photographs from Russian prisons.
Where was this actually in the Oval Office? Because I was watching.
That was in the White House. That was the whole thing. It was drafted about 55 minutes. He pulled out a handful of big photographs and handed them to Trump. Photographs were of Russian prisons. I don't know where they are.
The Ukrainians who'd been held by the Russians in prisons. Yeah. The only point I'm making in that regard, I'm using it to show that he badmouthed Putin right the whole way through. The reaction of Trump was very, very interesting, and the whole of the American delegation, they sat there. They didn't react. For example, the photographs, Trump just took them, looked at them, leafed through them, handed them back, and said, "That's why we need a peace." Yeah.
He didn't bite. He didn't bite for. See, this is how this guy. Zelensky misinterpreted the situation so badly, and that's what I want to move on to. People like John there, he doesn't get it, he just doesn't get it, what's happening in the world. Remember that Trump, after 45 minutes or so, sort of exploded, and you can analyze why, but he said to Zelensky, to paraphrase, I forget his words, "You're going to cause a second world war."
Third world war, I think he said.
A third world war, sorry, a third world. You're going to cause a third world war. In other words, a nuclear war. He didn't say it once, Giles. He repeated it. And this is what is motivating the Americans now, not the Democratic Party, but the Trump revolution, I would say. They're very aware of the danger of a nuclear war, even by accident, and they should be praised highly for doing this, for their position. This reminds me of Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, and his communications with Khrushchev at the height of that terrible crisis hit the world. This is the same thing. Just takes one accident. Now, this is the thing, Giles, that you must remember. One thing that this government in Ukraine that came in after the coup in 2014 and everything that happened after that, one thing about them is that the need and the work to have American troops on the ground in Ukraine.
You think? Sorry, say that again. You think that the Ukrainians want to have American boots in Ukraine?
They want American boots on the ground. They've been working for that all along, and this is what America is resisting. Why are they resisting? Why does America resist this? Because as soon as American troops are on the ground, they're open to all sorts of provocations from these. I call them a fascist government. All kinds of provocations which would trigger off a war between Russia and America. This is a kind of madness that inflicts people like this.
Right.
And this Trump, to his great credit, recognized this danger, and it's very much alive. I think what's going to happen now, by the way, I don't know if you're aware, but Trump has passed an edict that bans all arms to Ukraine.
That broke overnight. Yes,
so that's happened. That's happened in the last couple of days after this. So this is now a situation where I think he's got a private deal with Putin, and this is going to be a situation now where America and Russia are going to work together very closely. They may not solve the Ukraine issue. This may not be solved. It may not be possible to solve it, but they're going to work together on big business interests, big. For example, opening the
mineral wealth that they've got there.
Opening up new opportunities all over the world, and they're going to work together. And Russia is going to be taken in out of the cold, and Trump is going to combat this horrible Russia and Putin hatred that has grown up in the world, and it's a result of the Cold War. And Trump has moved beyond that, and it's a wonderful thing to see. I think that Starmer and these Europeans are completely out of line. I think the Democrats are guilty of treason in trying to shoot down the deal that Trump was making with Zelensky, and I think that there's going to be big repercussions, even arrests.
More calls coming in, Felix, but thank you for your comments there, as always. More calls coming in, and I'll get to you in a minute panel. Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Yeah, hi, it's John in Midhurst.
Hi, John.
Just to come back a little bit, Felix. I'm talking about jumping to conclusions. He says what he knows about me and what I know about the world, etc., when he knows nothing about me whatsoever. And he said that as an Irishman, I'm putting the knife into America. I believe today is the first time on air or in letters or anything else that I've ever mentioned America in any adverse way whatsoever. So I'd be grateful if he'd actually stick to reality and facts, because that really detracts from everything else he says as an educated man about history. Maybe none of it's true either. With respect, Felix.
Yeah,
okay, I'll leave it there.
Thanks, John. Thanks for calling. But have a thick skin here on Viewpoint, and just as we used to say on Fleet Street, today's newspaper, tomorrow's fish and chip paper.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that point because most people will probably accept that Felix knows what he's talking about because he normally does. I'm just pointing out on this occasion he got it totally wrong.
Right, Joe, thank you for your call in there. Panel, yes.
Yeah, not everyone agrees with everyone. But one thing that you mustn't do, anyone shouldn't do that, is to say he doesn't get it because your opinion doesn't agree with him. You could say I disagree with it, but to say to someone, that's why disrespectful to say, oh, he doesn't get it. That's not right. Everyone has got their perception, and they have got their ideas, and they've got their opinions.
They've got their viewpoints.
And they've got their viewpoint, exactly. So you can't just say to someone, that's quite dismissive. I think it's rude.
Yeah, Felix made an interesting point there about he thinks that Trump and Putin are going to work together and basically sort out the world's problems and bringing Russia in out of the cold. And, I go on about this all the time when I haven't taken my happy pills, about the fact that, Trump wants to work with men of power. So he wants to work with Putin because he thinks Putin knows what he's doing, and they're going to sort of basically carve up the world between the American zone, the Russian zone, and the Chinese zone. As a Canadian, yes. Because as you know, I mean, basically, you must get up every day when you finish shoveling the snow in Toronto and salute the American forces who are keeping you from the Inuit coming streaming over the border from Greenland.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have to shovel snow because I spend my winters here in Spain. But, I've heard so much stuff this morning, and you asked me earlier not to boil over like I did the last time I was on here with Peter, and I almost cut in, actually. Yes, because I'm on blood pressure pills now. So
okay, I wish you'd told me that before you came in. We're all on. I'm on happy pills. You're on your pills, and Ron's got your hip. Yes.
Well, there was a couple of people calling in that I thought I might need them this morning.
Okay.
So anyway, but it just, I hear so much crap.
Yeah,
and like somebody was talking about the ceasefires. And in 2014 to 2022. There were 20 ceasefire agreements, 20 of them, and Russia violated every one of them. So why would he want to sign another one? He wants peace. He doesn't want a ceasefire because Russia just violates them anyway. And Trump is just, or pardon me, not Trump, but Putin. Well, they're one and the same, in my opinion. Just Trump is his little puppet. So that's my opinion from what I've seen over the last few years, and then even when he was out of power.
But, I mean, here's the thing, because you served, didn't you? You were
yes, Canadian Armed Forces, Navy.
Yeah, in the Navy.
Yes.
And so everybody's running around saying it's disrespectful, and people say thank you for your service. Oh, actually, Americans say thank you for your service.
We do that in Canada as well, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a member of the Legion, Canadian Legion, Veterans Legion back home, and I get that a lot.
Yeah.
When people ask where I serve. We have our annual year Veterans Day, and we get a free dinner at the Legion and stuff. So yes, I'm very much involved in the Legion, and I'm proud that I have served in the Canadian Navy.
But would you? I mean, do you? If you see somebody wearing a uniform, at a meeting, if they've been in the National Guard, for example, or territorials or whatever, is it something that you feel strongly about if somebody turns up? Because everybody's saying, oh, well, he was wearing this outfit or that outfit. I mean, given where we are at the moment, as somebody who has...
My opinion is if somebody shows up at a meeting that I'm at, they're proud that they served, whether they're still in service or not, whether they're wearing it from the time that they did serve. They're proud of what they've done for their country. And, I mean, we weren't at war, but the Vietnam War was going on when I was in. And, we were involved with the American forces on several occasions, fueling their ships and stuff on their way over. And I'm proud of that. I'm glad we didn't get involved in Vietnam. But, as far as the uniforms go and anybody making fun of Zelensky for what he was wearing, this is not the 1800s at St. Andrew's Golf Course. You don't have to wear knee-high socks with your shorts and stuff. If that's what he wants to wear, who cares what he's wearing? He's there to represent his country, not his tailor.
952-78-4000. Going to take a quick break because we're into, believe it or not, we're into almost the last 10 minutes of this morning's Viewpoint, and then we're back with more WhatsApps.
Viewpoint with Giles Brown.
Always live into the last, blimey, 8 minutes or so. We've sort of spent 8 minutes talking about sort of tailoring. I like that. He's representing his country, not his tailor. To the WhatsApps we go. If you want to get your viewpoint across, these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Claudia from Nerka says, I think Trump would have to be the first to apologise to Zelensky for calling him a dictator. And what kind of diplomacy is this, using blackmail to try and bring Zelensky back to the table by stopping the aid? Meanwhile, this one in... Hi, since Biden's comments, Zelensky has said thank you loads. Trumpy wanted him to bend the knee. Also, Putin has never forgiven the collapse of the USSR. If Trump wants peace, then why does he want Bagram Air Base back, upsetting the Taliban? One name, Krasnov. Meanwhile, I've recently discovered the phrase, I have a different perspective, and whenever possible, I now try and use it when I meet someone with a different view to me. But by God, supporters of the Putin, Trump, and Netanyahu test my boundaries. Really need some WD-40 for the chairs, apparently. Meanwhile, journalists need to stop accepting this false frame from Donito that he's trying to negotiate a peace deal between Ukraine and Putin. He is not. He's throwing the Ukrainians under the bus and embracing Putin. This is not mediation. Trump, Vance and the others either have forgotten or never knew that Zelensky signed a ceasefire agreement with Putin in 2019. 3 years later, Putin launched his full-scale invasion, so signing another ceasefire with no security guarantees feels like suicide for the Ukrainians. To the poll of polls we go. We are asking on our poll of polls this morning, do you think that Zelensky disrespected the over Oval Office. 90% say no, 10% say yes. So that's the poll of polls at the moment. If you want to get involved, 5 minutes before the news. Andres.
I've been listening there very carefully. And I served in the Spanish army, you know. Giles.
Right, okay.
And nobody said to me, thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, I'm really glad that someone is recognizing my contribution towards the war effort of Spain.
Because this was when, we're talking about conscripts, because this was when the Millie was in
Millie, the conscript thing. Yeah, I spent a year in artillery, believe it or not. Look at me now.
Exactly.
So nobody said thank you for your service, but now that you said it, Giles,
yes,
I'm really happy. But anyway, do you realise we've spent the last hour talking about
I'm just intrigued. When you say
Zelensky?
Was it light artillery, or were you given the really big stuff?
No, it was big stuff. It was big artillery, but I mean the cannons that were used were from the Civil War. So
no.
Yeah. And the shells were very, very heavy. I had to carry the shells from the truck to the cannon. You know, that was my job.
The thought of you carrying
shells,
live ammunition, is quite something. Ron, come on, tell me something.
I had to carry my rum all the way from the main flats all the way down to my mess to drink it at 11:45 every morning. 2 ounces of rum.
2 ounces of rum?
Yeah.
The Navy?
Yeah.
Did you get a feel with before you started handling live ammunition, did you have a shot of a chupito?
No, we just have a San Miguel.
Yes. I'm just trying to think. I was a Cub Scout. No, I was in the cadets. Anyway, moving swiftly onwards. If you assume, let's go to the WhatsApp. If you assume Trump is a Russian asset, all his actions make sense. How long before he lifts US sanctions on Russia? And this one saying, to all your listeners calling and writing in support of Trump, I can only say, bless your heart. Dawn, 7th generation American and Southerner. Okay? No to Zelensky's apology. Thank you very much for that one. Dawn, 952 78 4000 is the phone number at the moment. It's 90% in the poll of polls. I'll just check on the okay. This one, I've never heard Peter taken in so easily by fake news. Oh, blimey. Russia issue everyday rubbish about Ukraine and Britain. The elected democratic leader of Ukraine has a higher popularity rating in Ukraine than Trump does in the US. 4% is waddle. Thank you for that. Yeah,
I was going to say that when the caller mentioned the 4%. I don't know where they got this figure from. That's not accurate at all. It's got a very good acceptance rate in Ukraine, and someone is branding this figure of 4%. And I think it was Trump actually the one who started with that figure, but that is not true. So, I mean, these days we have to be very careful with the information to receive and sort of just, look for different angles to see if that information is right. And certainly the 4% is not.
Yeah, I mean, people will seize on this and run with it. And, obviously they're saying, well, why doesn't it hold elections? Well, because they are currently at war. There is no ceasefire. And I think, can you imagine sort of a polling station somewhere in Ukraine, standing in line? I mean, it is hardly going to happen, is it? I think that's all we need.
This is one of you don't know who's going to score the goal there, but. I mean, these 4% is like even Podemos has got more support than 4%.
Just a quick one here to see how disrespectful Trump and his entourage are. You should note the treatment meted out to the Polish premier and how Macron needed to do a rerun entrance to the White House as Trump, as protocol dictates, should have greeted him. And another one saying the 4% figure was made up by Trump. So that is that 4%. Figure 952 78 4000 is the phone number. studio@tre.radio is the email. The Facebook page is Talk Radio Europe Official. You can WhatsApp me on +34 645. Looking at some more comments on our poll of polls, still at 90% yes. 90% no and 10% yes. Looking at some more comments on that one. The saying, how is he supposed to have disrespected the White House? This is Kate. He said thank you so many times for the support and weapons. Churchill will fatigues to the White House during World War II, and no one thought that disrespectful. And Trump and that snake Vance were disgraceful towards Zelensky, but Zelensky kept calm and didn't shout, although you could see he was angry. Trump and Vance disrespect the White House daily by being self-serving, corrupt, Putin puppies. Not a lot of grey area there. Looking at some more comments coming in. No, that's all we've got on that one. If you want to vote on our poll of polls, then go to Talk Radio Europe official's Facebook page, and the question is there. Right, coming up to the news at the top of the hour, and then we're back for the second half of Viewpoint. News up next, and then back for 60 minutes of more on this.
Talk Radio Europe.
Your voice in Spain.
Discuss, challenge, inform, comment, Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe.
Giles Brown.
Live comment and discussion with studio guests. Viewpoint.
Always live, always lively. Perhaps a little more lively than normal on this Tuesday, the 4th of March. Viewpoint with you for the next, 54 minutes. If you want to get your viewpoint across, these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
And it's straight to the lines we go. Morning, caller. You're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Yeah, hi, Charles. It's Johnny Meehouse.
John.
Just on that, you haven't got time, obviously, on the programme, and I just checked the 4% Zelensky's approval rating, and it was said by Trump, it says on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And Trump, he added, I hate to say, but he's down at 4% approval rating. And then the Newsweek shows the facts, and it says, according to a recent survey in Kyiv International Institute of Sociology, he's got 57% of Ukrainians say they trust Zelensky. So that's presumably the facts.
Yeah. The problem is that we now live in a world where people say, "Oh, yeah, but that's just the legacy, the mainstream media." And I've got this fact, or I've got this percentage here, and I'm going to stick to it. And we don't have we very rarely have people who they come to the news with their own agenda or their own beliefs, and that it won't be changed. That's the problem. Hello. No, we seem that was God. Right, yeah.
I was just going to jump in there. I was going to say, tell John that you can always tell when Trump is lying because his lips are moving.
Boom. Here. No, the nicest man in radio, ladies and gentlemen. 952 78 4000 is the phone up. Right, so let's move away from whether or not, he represented, I love that, he was representing his tailor or his country. I mean, this has got severe it's moving so fast. This is the thing. I mean, we knew that the second Trump presidency was going to be memorable and interesting. But did we think it was going to go this quick with so many repercussions? Because if you look at what's happened since January, it's almost a completely different landscape we're looking at now, in terms of especially European security, and also, what this means for Mexico and Canada as well. Just give me a little bit of perspective as a Canadian. When Trump says, we basically protect Canada, and then I stumbled across a documentary, as I do, about 44,000 Canadians lost in the Second World War. Dieppe, the fact that Canada kept the UK going with its merchant shipping and its convoys, basically, yes, before the Americans sort of joined in, and the huge sacrifices made, and the Canadian Air Force.
Exactly. The Americans didn't join in until after Pearl Harbor in 1941. Yeah, but Trump, I don't think, has any idea of what history Canada and the United States have. I mean, we were there in World War I to support them as well as World War II. And in, recently.
Iraq, Afghanistan?
Afghanistan,
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we were there in Afghanistan as well. We lost a number of our military over there. And it was all in support of the United States. And I just, when I think back on everything that Canada has done for the United States, I don't recall a whole lot of reciprocation. I don't know. Anytime Trump says anything negative about Canada, I want to be there, and I want to be Zelensky. And I don't know if you saw that ANI thing on Facebook where Zelensky punched him in the top of the head and he started crying.
I missed that one. But
I want to be there and be that guy. I want to take Zelensky's place in that one.
To the lines we go. Morning, call. You're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Morning, Giles. It's Swansea Jack.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And you sound rather splendid yourself, Swansea. What's crossing your radar this morning?
Well, what it is, first of all, does anybody know what the word Vladimir means in English?
Go on, tell me.
Right. Well, I studied a bit of Russian when I was young, Russian conversation. Well, apparently Vladimir, as in Putin, means ruler of the world. Ruler of the world, Vladimir. Mir is peace or world, and Vladimir is the ruler of the world. And this, what's his name? Trump, is it, or something? The new president. How long has he been in power now for the second time?
Since January.
A few weeks?
Since January.
Since January. Yeah. Oh, right. Is it that long, is it? Right. Well, apparently, what Zelensky did fail to do, he should have taken a pack of cards with him, because Trump is a deal maker, and he does deals, and he talks about cards. So he should have taken a pack of playing cards with him. That was his faux pas, as they say in French. And he is going to be made, as far as I'm concerned, the sacrificial lamb for Ukraine, for Vladimir, for Mr. Putin, because I think that Trump, is that his name, has made a deal with Putin, and the sacrificial lamb will be Zelensky. So he will pay for everything with the mineral rights and other things, right? And he will be like a lamb to the slaughter, or as they say in the language of heaven, yes and ever. Roy there. Well, oin i'r father, he was like a lamb to the slaughter.
You see, if only they did these things in Welsh, you see, then that would be...
I know, but it's the... Well, oin i'r father. It's the language of heaven, you see, like a lamb to the slaughter.
Jack, thanks for your call in, as always. Lovely to hear from you, and happy couple of days after St. David's Day as well. Just a quick one, right? Yes.
Yeah, and as your grandmother would have said, and there he was gone.
Just a quick one before you leave. I just wanted to tell you that probably would have been a good idea for Zelensky to sit down and play cards with Trump, because he's bankrupted 4 casinos.
I know exactly. He's such a good businessman that all his business enterprises went downwards, didn't they? They all sank. I mean, how can you bankrupt a casino? How can a casino? I've never known a casino. It's like a betting shop or a casino go bankrupt. I mean, you've got to be pretty special to be able to do that.
Pretty
you?
special is the word,
or stupid.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Jack, as always, good to hear.
Anyway, good luck to Canada. Anyway, because unfortunately you'll need it. I know a Canadian here, and he's a Trump supporter in Spain, and he's actually a Trump supporter, but. The thing is, you can't talk to him because there's nothing, he's always right. Stevie Wonder wrote a song about him, Mr. Know-It-All.
Yeah. Well, most Trump supporters are easy to figure out because their IQ is less than 60.
Right then, so
less than 60, so much. No, I would put it even lower, much lower than that.
Right then,
10.
Thank you very much for that. All viewpoints are good to hear from you, Swansea. All viewpoints are respected here, though. Indeed, I mean it's one of the things though. It's thrown sort of Europe into a frenzy here because European leaders didn't think this was going to happen so quickly, and Trump has said that obviously cancelling this aid to Ukraine is a major blow. It's an absolutely major blow to the effort here, and what Europe's response the European Union isn't a military alliance. And yet they're trapped between the rock and the hard place. You've got Trump on the one side, you've got Putin on the other, who's just biding his time and must be absolutely loving this, in the Kremlin. And you've got this union of nations, some of whom, are supporting Zelensky, some of whom are being a little standoffish. Where does Europe go from here? Because this is not the scenario that we were expecting. Andres?
It's fair to say that until Trump got to the presidency, there hasn't been any talk of peace or no talk of deals. All this come from Europe is the undisputed support for Ukraine, the Ukrainian people and Zelensky. But it's fair to say, I mean, Trump has arrived and he started talking about peace, which, as I said before, is very easy to say, I want peace. But what you have to put on the table is something credible. He hasn't been able to put anything credible, in my view, on the table, and basically, in my opinion, is going nowhere. Why? Because Zelensky doesn't want to be a lamb to the slaughter, and Zelensky is standing his ground, claiming what he thinks is right for his country, which he's been raped basically by the troops of Russia invading 20% of his country. So that's where we are. European Union, as you rightly say just now, Giles, is not a military force, and we've been reliant on the NATO deal and being members of NATO. But NATO is not the same as it was when it was first formed, because the geopolitical situation is very, very different. I mean, let's not forget, Turkey is a very important member of NATO, and Turkey's interests are different to those in different parts. Spain is part of NATO. I know I always bring the Spanish thing, but we are in Spain. Spain is part of NATO, but we are spending on NATO 1.3% of GDP, which to everyone's view now is not enough. Well, I'm starting to question, are we going to put more money to it? Where is that money going to go? Is it going to go on material that is mainly produced in the United States? How is it going to defend us on a hypothetical situation, let's say, with Morocco? Let's say Morocco wants to claim the two cities that we have in northern Africa, in Moroccan territory, and they decide to invade those cities, and we are entering into a conflict with Morocco. Now, we are members of NATO, but Morocco is a strategic partner of the United States. So how is that going to help? So I'm starting to question the functionality of NATO as such. And now the European Union, knowing that we have no military capability, they want to now suddenly invest a lot of money onto military capability. The figures that have been branding around, they're completely ridiculous, because yesterday was 500 million. This morning, von der Leyen has announced that it's 841 million. So overnight, we've got 300,000 more million, whatever the figure is, ridiculous anyway, that we're going to invest. Now, this money is money that has to be borrowed. This borrowing has to be repaid. Who repays the borrowing? The taxpayer. So all the Europeans are going to have to put money towards these military capabilities that have to be developed. They're not going to be developed overnight. So tomorrow morning we're not going to have an army capable of, facing the military might of Russia. So this is going to be over a period of time. I'm starting to question: I mean, all that money that's going to go, all that borrowing, all that putting in danger the finances of 27 countries are going to solve any problems, when in reality we need to sort of protect the welfare states that we live in. And that money, the danger is that some of the money that goes towards this military capability is going to, sort of have an effect in things like national health or the education of the infrastructure system that we need to have the citizens of the countries in the European Union who are perfectly at peace, but now we're going to have to put all this money towards the military effort. In consequence, my question is, I don't know the answer. I haven't made up my mind yet, but is it worth it? Is it worth it to still be part of NATO? Is it worth to spend all this money on military capabilities? Because are we going to have enough military capability to face armies like the Russian army? I don't know the answer to that, so maybe your listeners have an opinion, or maybe the Canadians have got an opinion on that.
Do the Canadians have? No, the Canadians are very sagely sort of going over where they don't have a pick. But the thing is, and here we go. All right, brace yourselves, all right, because divide and rule. Okay, that's a strategy. If you want to defeat your enemy, you make them argue amongst themselves, so they're weaker. It's a basic principle. You go back to the art of war. Yes, it's all very well to say, well, we can't spend this money as we sit in the Iberian Peninsula. We can't spend this money. And you just opened a new box of frogs, by the way, with the thought of Morocco coming over. Thanks for that, Andres. I was all very quiet, and then you said, and Morocco might have a pop at Theodore Melilla. That's another one. But look, anyway,
I see hypothetical. I'm not saying that they're going to do it, but what I'm trying to say is that they are different interests now within within NATO and within different countries around the world. They've got different needs that they were 50 years ago or 60 years ago, So that's why I'm saying it's the concept of NATO is still valid today. That is the question.
Perhaps our listeners have got the answers because we go live to the lines. Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What is your viewpoint, please?
Good morning, Giles. It's Alf.
Good morning, Alf.
Madonna. Freezing cold, horrible weather. I wish I was in the sun. There you go.
Right, okay, so that's the weather report. Right, what's your viewpoint, Alf?
Good morning, Andreas, and nice to hear you again, Roy.
Good morning, Alf.
Ron. It's Ron. It's Ron.
Ron. I got that wrong. Never mind.
I've been called a lot worse.
on this show. Okay.
I've heard you on before, so I know how good you are. One of the things throughout all of this, and no disrespect, I mean, I enjoy the programme as usual. We get the history lessons, we get some of the nonsense that's spoken, and you just, yeah. But one of the issues, the real issues, and I think Andreas was nearly getting there, but he never quite got there, is that how are they going to pull together this big coffer of money that they're then going to spend presumably on arming? It's not even arming the Ukraine, is it? Some of it is just moral support, food, clothing, stuff like that. So we forget that they've still got to eat and they've still got to live, as well as being able to bomb bits of Russia. So, but one of the issues will be, and the UK have just done it. Annalisa Dodds just resigned because she was not happy that they cut the
Annalisa Dodds being, for
budget.
those listening in, Alf, who is Annalisa Dodds?
Annalisa Dodds was the Minister for Overseas Development.
Ah, right, thank you.
So, similar. So we've got, at the moment, Trump withdrawing all the overseas aid by the use of Elon Musk, presumably because he wants people to spend it resurrecting his Tesla cars that are not selling now. I think it's because of the way he behaves it's affecting the Tesla sales, but whatever. So we've got that, and then we've got the UK saying, and we're withdrawing money from overseas development. And if every other country in Europe, in order, because they will be under pressure, and I heard what Andreas said about Spain and the 1.3 for NATO, but even they will move. And sometimes it's not up front, is it? They don't say, well, we're going to up our budget from 1.3 to 2%. I mean, that would probably bankrupt Spain. It would bankrupt the UK putting up that much. But it's about, they're all going to be under pressure to get money from wherever. And I think a lot of overseas aid. And then what we're going to see, there was a thing on the television only yesterday. They're withdrawing, America have just withdrawn $850 million from Kenya. Just one country. They rely on it, and we can't help it. I'm not sure where it came from, and I'm sure South Africa will suffer as well. But a lot of it is on AIDS support.
Yeah.
A lot of it is on uplifting poverty-stricken people all around the world, and good on America for doing it, but I can't imagine, what's the next phase of them doing that is the rebirth of the next Idi Amin, blaming some group of people in Kenya and driving them out, so the world will be suffering from more refugees wandering around with nowhere to go, nowhere to live, no jobs, no money, no food, and all the money that then piles up on the rest of the world for sustaining that. So not only is Trump wrong for that, but the rest of Europe, I'm not saying that the UK were wrong for pulling back on overseas development now, and I think they will replace it as soon as. But if everybody does it, the rest of the world is going to be in a complete, real mess that the rest of the world is going to have to support. And Putin will be sitting there, and China will be sitting there, and lots of other countries will be sitting there. I'm not sure about India. India won't worry about foreign aid. They'll just stop sending another rocket to the moon or wherever they're going to send it to. So I just think it's sorry and sad for all of those people that never have a say, never get to have their views aired, simply because a bunch of people are playing war games in one part of the world.
I've got some more calls coming in, but thank you for your calls in there. A bit of soft power coming in there. 952-78-4000. Thank you for calling. Thank you for holding, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Hello, Giles. Felix here.
Yes, Felix.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you loud and clear, Felix.
Okay, well, I'll go back to my former point about the danger of nuclear war when Biden was in power.
Right.
I mean, the contrast is very sharp. Biden was not communicating with Putin, and he was calling Putin all kinds of bad names, like a thug.
Right.
Thug. And Trump has decided that it's better to seek a deal. It's better to call for peace and to enter into communication with Putin,
right,
the leader of the enemy. And I think that's far preferable way to approach it. Now, Andreas there said that Putin didn't have a plan. Is that right, Andreas?
No, I haven't said that. But what I said, and I just to go on to what you just said, what I said is that it's music to my ears and everyone's ears that the Trump arrived and he said, "I want peace." Okay. And yeah. I celebrate that, and I think everybody celebrates that. Now, what he's put on the table is not an acceptable peace agreement. It's not even a peace agreement. It's just a ceasefire to see how they can divide what's your, what's mine between Russia and the United States. That's nobody's going to agree that. The Ukraine have been set aside.
You'll explain to me. Okay, I get it. Trump doesn't have the plan that you want, but he has a plan, and the plan is for a ceasefire in Ukraine. And opposing that call for a ceasefire at the moment is Europe and Zelensky. But Trump does have a plan, and the ceasefire could very well happen because, listen carefully, Andreas, Trump and Putin are working together on this. And if Trump asks Putin to agree to a ceasefire, to hold an election, because obviously you can't have an election in the present conditions, But if he asks Putin, look, do me a favor here. Let's have a ceasefire. Call for a ceasefire. Do a ceasefire, and then we can have an election. Now, that's a winner. That's a winner for Trump. It's a winner for Putin, because the main object to have at the moment is to remove Zelensky and to have an election. I ask you, if there is an election, will all the banned parties be able to take place?
Right, we don't know the outcome of an election.
Let me finish. Okay. Let me finish. This regime of Zelensky, directed by very right-wing forces, has been a very repressive regime, where people have had to flee. Will the former Prime Minister be able to take part in this election? These are big questions. So, Trump does have a plan. The whole thing is opened up now, and the possibility of an election, of a new government, of real peace, of an agreement how Ukraine is going to be governed, is on the cards again. I think that's a positive, but the big positive of all, and this is why I'm surprised at you, the big positive of all is that the President of the United States is not calling Putin a thug, and there is a possibility of big agreement on the international scale, even if they don't solve Ukraine, of big agreement between these two most heavily armed powers in the world, nuclear armed powers in the world. They'll be working together rather than going for nuclear war. To me, that's a big plus, and he has a plan. Okay, I'll just leave it there unless there's any more questions.
Thank you very much for that. We've got quite a few things coming in, but Felix, thank you very much for your call in.
Thank you, Giles.
952 78 4000. Going to a quick break and then back with more Viewpoint.
Viewpoint with
Giles Brown.
Yes, thanks to our new sponsor, St. James Global Private Clients, pleased to announce their expansion into Spain with over 40 years experience helping clients enjoy their retirement and lifestyle. If you've taken steps to protect your UK assets in the most tax-efficient manner, for expert financial advice for Spanish tax residents and to maximise your retirement income, contact St. James Global Private Clients at info@stjamesglobal.com. St. James Global, protecting your assets and growing your wealth too. Let's go to the poll of polls, I think. Let's see how that's...
Yeah, that's a good one. We haven't had Don Knows.
Sorry?
Don Knows. Just the yes, no and Don No.
We've had... Well, no, it was 90 and then it was 10.
But no Don Knows.
Nobody don't know. So let's go, shall we, panel?
I can have a Don No.
You'd like to have a don't know, do you? I think you said Don Knows. So, looking at the panel, at the poll of polls... So it's a thing we do, Ron. Now, okay. Don't look so. Oh. Not you. Just keep smiling. It's okay. This is something we brought in. You see, on the Facebook group Talk Radio Europe Official. We have a poll so that viewers can get involved. Listeners can get involved even more so. And I ask the question ahead of every Viewpoint. I pick up something that I think maybe they can have an opinion on. Was it last night? Yeah, last night I put this on Talk Radio Europe Official. After Friday's fracas between Trump and Zelensky at the White House, do you think Ukraine's leader disrespected the Oval Office? 12% say yes, he did disrespect the office. 87% said that he didn't disrespect the Oval Office, and 1% said
don't know.
Correct. There you go. So that's your don't know. You can make comments underneath as well. Go to the talk. So that's the poll of polls, and we'll see how that goes by the end of the day. To the WhatsApps we go, looking at what the WhatsApps are saying. So, So arguably news anchors don't challenge those stats. I can't say that word, thank you. It doesn't have to be borrowed. It can be reassigned from other... Okay, thank you very much. What's the alternative, Claudio, to go all alone like the UK? It is best to do it as a group. That's the whole thing about your work. Think about NATO. Come back on that when we've finished all the ones. Much is right. This is good morning. This is Zoe. Much has been said about Zelensky wearing a military outfit and praised for it. Rather than copying Churchill, I would argue that he was inspired by Yasser Arafat, the late PLO leader. It was Arafat who always said he never took out his military suit and he never took off his military suit until Palestine was free. At the time, he was ridiculed by the press and world leaders for his stance. And now, why is it that a double standard is applied with Zelensky? Okay, so it's an interesting point if you think that Zelensky is channeling his inner Arafat. Meanwhile, Andres has some very good points concerning NATO. There are some very difficult questions to ponder. Don't forget the Russian economy and army aren't in a strong position now, but an authoritarian government with a cowed population, not a coward, but a cowed population, can usually do what an authoritarian government with a cowed population can normally do what it likes. Remember, this is how the how when the USSR suddenly collapsed, it turned out to be all the strength portrayed by the USSR to the West was a complete fiction. Meanwhile, for the self-acclaimed master of the deal, has Trump ever done a political one internationally that's been successful? If Trump prefers peace, then he should have continued the JCPOA treaty and dialogue with Iran rather than throw his handbag. That would have created greater calm in the Middle East. And this one saying, another thing, if you see the frontline news, Russia was having some setbacks. So Trump's holding supplies is done on behalf of Putin. I do get tired of people saying Putin's a reasonable person. How many people have taken flying lessons out of windows? So that's an interesting. So those are the WhatsApps coming in. Just checking on the studio at TRE. History shows that effectively Churchill had to form a coalition government because there was fear that too many of his governments were Nazi German sympathizers and he had to keep the population on side. Other than that, his military background leaves a lot to be questioned. Well, First Lord of the Admiralty, War, etc. Anyway, any comeback? So I was just one point I picked up with your WhatsApps, Giles, is one of the things you say, that everyone seems to think that Russia's economy is not doing so well and they won't have the funds to, continue with the war and everything else. I mean, this theory, I don't think we have grasped the idea of a dictator. Russia is a country with endless resources of gas, petrol, minerals, all sorts of things, and there is a dictator in charge of all these resources. He can divert as much money as he likes towards maintaining a war for as long as he needs to. So the fact that, the economy is not doing well, the normal people will be suffering, but I don't think Putin gives a damn about what his own people suffer or not. He wants to, sort of follow his path, and as a dictator, he can. A little point. No, I mean, the thing is, that has always been the Russian way of war. It was the Soviet way. It was the meat grinder. It was just throw waves of people at it. Doesn't matter. And but the thing that strikes me is that Russia may have all the mineral wealth and all this thing we're saying, but even in the Second World, we had land lease. I mean, the Soviets were running around with American Jeeps and they couldn't have been able to maintain it because Russia doesn't have the systems to bring that mineral wealth. They can sometimes be their logistics aren't up to scratch, because that's why if you looked at it on a purely sort of numbers basis, they should have been in Kyiv and done and dusted within weeks. But we had those lines of Russian vehicles outside Kyiv because they basically ran out of fuel and ran out of direction, as the saying goes.
Yeah, the question is how much money have they been investing into the war machine prior to the invasion? Because a lot of those tanks and everything were from the Soviet era, so that's what they weren't working. But what I'm trying to say is, as a dictator, even the economy is going badly. They're not going to have an insurrection with the people because he's got a stronghold on the whole stranglehold on the whole power system there, and he can use the resources towards maintaining a war for as long as he needs to or he wants to. Not only that, if there is this deal with Trump and they split the Ukraine into two, this bit for you, this bit for me, and forget Zelensky and the Ukrainians. If he gets to that point, in 4 years' time, Trump won't be there, and then he will be obliged to keep a peace deal going. and then he can go somewhere else. And that is a danger. This guy will be free to do whatever he wants and he feels like, invading other parts. He is a big danger. I mean, he is a brutal dictator, and we have to say to say what it is. You know, Biden called him a thug. What do we have to have any deference towards Putin? Why? What, you have to call him a gentleman? He's not. He's a thug.
Yeah.
And he's you know, sort of proven that. Nobody can dispute that. He's a dictator and he's willing to go the lengths to do whatever he wants. And with total disregard for his own people, total disregard for human life, and total disregard for international law. So what do you want to call him? A gentleman Putin? No, he's a thug.
The thing is, but say that the States and Russia do a deal over Ukraine and they carve it up, okay? Europe is going to be left in limbo with this one, and you just said, okay, you know, Putin's a thug. There's nothing we need to unite against him. Well, the thing is, you can't have it both ways. You know, I was going about, so if Europe is going to take a middle way, and it brings into question what the actual influence Europe's going to have on any of this in the global political state. We have, thanks to NATO and the United Front and whatever, and international cooperation, we've enjoyed 80 years of peace and relative prosperity and democracy throughout the Western world. And unfortunately now, if this is going to develop in the way that I think a Trump mindset goes, with spheres of influence, and he's going to, because if you do it once with Ukraine, who's to say they're not going to do it with Estonia and then maybe Romania and maybe Moldova, and say, yeah, but historically, and there's a population being, it's Elba, it's living space, and I've heard that before. And I get the points of you saying that people will say, yeah, but it's going to cost, we're going to have a crisis, cost of living crisis go up, and we're going to maybe not have the health service and the road infrastructure. But if we're going to have to rearm and get ready in Europe just to deter, that's a price to pay for, because
it's to what level we have to rearm to be able to stop the threat like Putin. What is the level there? What do we need to have, and how much money we have to spend, and in what time frame we do all these to be able to stop Putin? And that's the question. I mean, I don't think that we will invest enough money to be able to be a recognizable force that people will fear the European Union as a military force that they will not want to upset us. It'll take too much time and too much money to get to that point. And my fear is that we're going to go halfway and we'll spend all that money to end up no different to what we are now, in detriment of real services that are needed now for normal people like you and me.
Okay, well, I mean, if we don't do the spending, I've said before, divide and rule, okay, which is the thing. United Front. All the European leaders need to say, call the bluff, do the bluff game, and say, all right, well, we now stand behind Ukraine, and we mean it. Because the Finns mean it, the Swedes mean it, the people on the borders there mean it. We can't have people saying, oh yeah, but it's a bit far away, we're on the beach here, and that doesn't really apply to us, because we have seen this before. If you start splitting up, then you are vulnerable. But if you are united, then, that Peter's going to think, if I go into Romania, it's not a country far, far away. Spain has very strong connections with Romania now.
Totally. But don't forget that we have 27 heads of state here.
Yeah.
And in the United States, you've got Trump, then you've got Putin on the other side, and they can more or less make their own decisions. I know Trump has got Congress and Senate and everything else, but still, he's got a majority everywhere, so he can make decisions fairly quickly. We are an oil tanker. To turn around, it takes ages. Have to make an agreement with 27 heads of state, where you got a guy in Hungary that is going to go his way, who might not agree to some of the fundamental things. You've got other heads of state where the position in the country is not quite what everyone wants. So we have a problem of cohesion. There is not a central military command that is going to direct the whole of the investment. And what I'm afraid, Giles, in essence, and we are going to waste money and time in doing something that is going to end up being not a deterrent, not a force to reckon with, and in the meantime, we're going to be wasting all this money. I mean, that's my fear. I might be wrong, of course, like with many other things, you know. And then turn around and say, well, that's not a good idea, let's go to NATO. Then I'm questioning NATO as well, because NATO is very expensive. But now the interest of NATO has diverted from one side to the other. You've got Turkey there, you've got, you know, the different countries. If you've got Canada, for instance, you know. Well,
don't say that. You can change that to not from 27 to 28, because I'm sure the Canadians would support the EU if they were going to support Ukraine.
The use of NATO, but to putting all this money into this organisation that is not as functional as it was during the Cold War, I'm questioning that. That's what I'm saying. I haven't got a solution, so I'm sorry, guys. I'm presenting a problem without a solution, which is not my style. But that's, you know, where I'm starting to think, maybe that's not the route to take.
But the thing was, we've seen this. We always assumed that the US would be in support of Western democracies against the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. What we've seen now is that Trump is questioning that, but also his peculiar worldview. We've seen the demonization of anything south of Tijuana, basically. He is basically saying that, you know, Mexico is full of rapes, drugs, dealers, and everything else. And this whole thing with Canada being protecting Canada, which obviously makes the Canadians go, you know your history about as well as my left foot. It calls into question the whole how we're going to do politics. Are they going to ride roughshod over and use bully tactics over Europe? Are they going to even bother with Europe and the neighbours, which has always been one of the things that's bound North America together, has been that if you're a small businessman trying to export stuff, and Trump seems to forget that an awful lot of stuff goes the other direction from Canada,
and he also makes his own numbers. As far as the import of drugs and everything else going into the United States from Canada, 1% of all the fentanyl, and Trump is broadcasting something like 20-some-odd%. Yeah, it was 1.2%.
But Trump has realised that it's very easy to manipulate the public opinion.
My personal opinion, my personal viewpoint on Trump is that he doesn't give a damn what happens over the next 4 years, as long as he can leave with an equal amount of money to Elon Felon Musk. That's his goal, is to leave the presidential office with as much money as he can put in his pocket.
You're assuming he's going to go after 4 years. Right, to the...
If he survives that long. Or he could die of old age.
Possible.
I'm assuming that he's going in 4 years. I mean, but... we could be sitting here for...
There are known knowns and known unknowns, as the saying goes. I just want to go to the WhatsApps before I hit another ad break. So, the following: previous 7 days war stats, including meat grinder Russian personnel losses. Just be aware, these figures have been provided by the Ukraine forces. They're looking at the losses. They are saying that 1,340 Russians were killed in the past 7 days, and lots of very different stats. Okay, thanks for that. Coming up to just under 900,000, almost 1 million, according to those figures, who've been lost in terms of Russian losses, the meat grinder. This one in as well. Putin and Russia's army isn't that strong. The USSR was. A European NATO equivalent will do. I thought the idea was to use interest generated from frozen Russian assets to fund arms to Ukraine.
That's peanuts.
Okay. Now then. Grow up, people. Get past Trump's rhetoric and look at the facts and acts. This has been building up for 45 years. No proper Western leaders have had the foresight to see this happen. Doesn't matter if he dies. He'll make Lurch as divine leader. Presumably that's his son, I would imagine. Lurch. Thank you. And Danito is going nowhere after this term if he's still alive. And Andres has some brutal comments on NATO, but I hate to admit it, but he's probably correct. 952-78-4000. Quick break, and then we're going to be into the last 7 minutes of this morning's Viewpoint.
Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe with
Giles Brown.
Always live into the last 6 minutes Stephen Ritson is out there in the metaverse. Into the last 6 minutes I'm looking forward to his comments after this show, after this morning's Viewpoint. Just a quick ones. I was referring to Baron Trump, the son. Let's hope the Simpsons are correct. Right, you've got me on Simpsons references, so I'm not quite sure about that because I don't have a TV. Ron, you had prepared some facts and figures. Come on, you did them, so let's have... come on, you got 6 minutes.
Yeah, if you know, it would be wonderful if Trump would concentrate a little bit more on looking after the murders and the gun deaths and everything in the United States. And I have some numbers here. Just in 2021, there was 48,830 people died, gun-related deaths. The mass shootings in 20 to 24 averaged 600 a year. Whoa. From 2020 to 2024. In Vegas in 2017, there was 50 people killed by that one guy in that hotel and 500 wounded because he had automatic weapons. What country would allow automatic weapons to be sold at gun sales, yard sales?
Yeah, but
what he has to do is he has to squash the NRA, get rid of them.
But the NRA are massive backers. I've always been traditionally...
They support half the frigging politicians in the United States,
exactly.
If not more.
A massive lobby, and it's the Constitution thing as well.
Yeah,
that's been supported by the Republicans and the Democrats. Yeah. So it's not. It doesn't seem to. One of the parties say we are the ones who are going to champion the. You know.
Well, I'll just interrupt just a bit here.
Yeah, sure.
I think that the Democrats, a lot of them, support the NRA because the NRA are financing their political careers.
But look, I've got friends in America that they are really anti-guns. You know, they are, I mean, completely. You know, they think it's disgusting. But the power they exercise and everything else. But then I asked them, "Do you have a gun?" They said, "Yeah." They said, "I thought you were anti-guns." Yeah, but you have to have it because everyone has a gun.
Yeah,
you know? And although they are anti-guns, they have a revolver at home.
Well, I mean, my very good friend, the captain, good morning, Captain R, he said he's moved over from Miami, and he said the great thing about my bay is living down here is that the weather's the same, and if he does get stuck in a traffic jam, at least he knows the guy, 9 times out of 10, the guy next to him is in arms. Yeah. So, for the road rage.
Exactly. And another thing is that even if you ban them today, you still got 400 million guns in circulation.
Oh, for sure.
So if you don't have a gun in America, you sure know a neighbor or a friend or a family member who's got one. So if you want to do something, you just need to borrow one. Where to find a gun here, let's say in Spain, I wouldn't know where to find a gun. Would you, Giles?
Talk to me after the show.
I don't want one.
I don't want one. But if I wanted one, I wouldn't know where to go.
The last time I fired a weapon was when I got out of the before I got out of the armed forces, when I was still serving. Yeah, and that was at target practice.
And they're still talking about it today. There's actually, it's called Ron's Ricochet, and it's marked with a plaque. It started in Toronto, it ended up in Victoria. Right, we're into the last 3 minutes of the show. 952 78 4000 is the phone number. studio@tre.radio is the email. The poll of polls. Should we have the? How shall we have to look at the poll of polls to see what on our Facebook page? Just a quick update on the poll of polls to say what it finally said, because we're so the final poll of polls looks like after Friday's fracas between Trump and Zelensky, who do you think the Ukraine leader disrespected the Oval Office? Yes, 12%, no, 87%, and don't know, just for your information, I think you probably voted, was 1%. So there you go. Now, how this week, I mean, who knows? We're only on Tuesday. What do we think? Crystal balls, panel, if you'll pardon the expression, panel, Andres. I mean, it's going to be, again, who knows what's coming out of the box?
So difficult to predict. I think the European Union with the UK will make some kind of announcement and confirmation of investment on security and military presence. That's going to be only an announcement. Well, the European Union, the Europeans in general are very good at announcing things and nothing happens. So the announcement will be there. And it won't happen overnight. As I said before, this takes a long time to develop a whole industry. So that's going to be, I expect from the European Union will come. From Trump, Who knows? Impossible to predict. And in the meantime, Putin is, watching TV with his popcorn, thinking everything is going my way. So that's my prediction. But of course, at this day and age, I'm probably wrong.
Mm-hmm. And well, I just thought that we might be talking a little bit more about the Canadians' tariffs that Trump's imposed and everything on Canada. And Canada's a very resilient company, regardless of what he does. We'll reciprocate in some way, so we can turn the water off into California or whatever, and cut off all their oil supplies if we wanted to. The other thing I was going to mention earlier was that the reason that Trump is the president of the United States is that 36% of the population of the United States didn't vote. 89 million Americans didn't vote in the last election.
What does that say about where we are, Ron? What do you think?
Well, if they'd gone to the polls and voted, Trump may not be in there. Probably wouldn't be.
Well, the good news, because we are at the end of the program, aren't we?
Yeah, you can give us some good news, Andrew.
I'm going to give you some good news. To all working mothers out there, you have the great support of Meghan Markle and her new show on Netflix. All good news. I'm glad to say.
Rod is practically in tears. Well, you've managed to keep your nicest man in radio awards this week.
Well, thank you.
You didn't blow, which I thought perhaps it might have happened at the beginning of the show. So good to have you.
Good thing they couldn't see the finger.
Indeed, and how beautifully manicured it is too. Thank you for showing me.
Thank you.
Thank you for showing me that one. Right, it's been great to have you, Rod. And I hope we'll get you back on before you go back to Toronto. I think if you're up for that one.
Sure, whatever. Yeah, March 31st. I'm here till.
Okay, well we can do that indeed. Andreas, as always, good to have you with us on the panel.
Thank you, Giles.
Thank you for everybody for getting involved in what has been a very live and lively Viewpoint. We couldn't do this show without you. Thank you to the new sponsor of the show, St. James Global Private Clients, info@stjamesglobal.com, and thank you for your input. This show will be repeated at 7 o'clock. Brace yourself, because Stephen Ritson is next.
The views expressed on Viewpoint by invited studio guests and callers do not constitute an opinion endorsed in any way by Talk Radio Europe.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this program, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit tre.radio.